Good morning, everyone. Today we have a very special guest here with us in Aranyak. Today we are going to listen from Harshad Parekh sir about how Krishnamurti's teachings touched his life, and from an electrical engineer, he also has a doctorate in that field, how his life changed and how he decided to start teaching in the Krishnamurti Foundation schools. So today we have Harshad Parekh sir. I would give a little brief on about him what we know. He has been teaching all around the Krishnamurti Foundation schools since last 28 years. Before that, he was working in America, and also he was studying electrical engineering in America. And we are going to hear from him how he got in touch with Krishnaji's teachings, and he met Krishnaji after that by writing to him. And after that, he continued to teach in all the Krishnamurti schools. I welcome Harshad Parekh sir to join us.
Able to hear my voice?
Yes, we can't
Yeah.
see you, but we
Ah,
can't. Camera is off, sir.
camera. Acha. Okay. Are you
Yes,
able to are you able to
yes,
hear my voice also?
yes, yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
And I could hear you also when you introduced me. Okay.
Okay, good. So
Right.
our problem is solved. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Please tell us about your journey
Okay.
with Krishna's teachings. Yes.
Okay. Um, Good morning, friends. Thank you, Suromita, for introducing me. And I would like to tell you a little bit about how I came into contact with Krishnamurti's teachings and later with Krishnamurti, and then I worked in Krishnamurti schools. So I will start with 1969 when I left India to study for my master's degree in electrical engineering at Iowa State University. And before I left India, I did not know anything about the Western culture. And I had some kind of false confidence that whenever the problems come, I will meet these problems. But it seemed like I was living in a kind of a dream world. And even when people came to the airport, Mumbai airport, and they told me to take care of myself, and I told my relatives that now people have gone to the moon in 1969, and I will be still on Earth. So please don't worry about me. So when the plane left and when it came to London and then Paris, I begin to see people of many different nationalities, many different dress, and it was completely new. And for the first time, I was away from home. I did not know even much about India. I had lived only in Gujarat. So a fear started coming to me. And then from Paris, went to New York, and then went to some university in the South Alabama state. And I had a friend, and he said, don't stay in this university because even if you get a degree in this university, you will not get any job. So I left that university in Alabama State and came to Iowa State in the North America. And initially, I had many problems, culture shock. I was feeling very lonely in a different culture. Even my academic was not going well in the beginning, and I had no scholarship. So I was worrying about money, and then I did not like the food. and the climate it became very cold in October, November. And so I went through many problems in the beginning, first 3 months. And even at one time, I had thought of coming back to India without studying anything. But somehow I stayed there. And after that, uh, one by one, my problems were solved. And I had got scholarship from our department, engineering department. And then I completed my master's degree in 1971, and then I started PhD in 1972. And I think it was in 1972 that I was passing by our university bookshop, and I saw one book of Krishnamurti through the window. Uh, the book of Krishnamurti, The Flight of the Eagle, it was on display. And I liked the title of the book. I did not know who was Krishnamurti and what he was saying, but I had heard his name, that there was one philosopher like Krishnamurti. So I was curious, and so I bought that book, The Flight of the Eagle, in 1972. And when I started reading the book, I found that what Krishnamurti was saying, I could see it like he was saying that humanity is suffering from many problems for thousands of years. And whether you are American or Indian or Chinese, every human being goes through psychological problems like fear, anger, jealousy, loneliness. So when I read that, then I felt that I am not the only one who is suffering from this problem. Krishnaji said that the whole humanity is suffering from these problems. So then I began to look around me, and then I found that Americans in their own country, they were lonely. There were no relationship in the family. They had very bad habits, drinking, smoking, and all that, watching violent films. So when I realized that I am not an Indian, I am a human being, and like other human beings, I also go through these problems. And then Krishnamurti was showing from where do these problems arise, like all psychological problems like fear, anger, jealousy. And Krishnaji said that all these problems, they come from thinking. And uh, Krishnaji said that from thinking comes this feeling of I or me, and what Krishnamurti called thinker. And then there is a duality between thinker and thought, because this thinker says, I don't like it, I like it, I'm angry, I don't want to be angry, and so on. That duality starts between what is and what should be, or between thinker and thought. So, in Krishnamurti's words, thought creates the thinker, and then the thinker tries to change thought. So there is this duality, and this duality is the source from where all our problems arise. So when I read that, I found it very strange, and I had not come across such a thing, that the thought creates the thinker, because our normal conditioning is that I am thinking, and everybody feels that way, I am thinking. But Krishnamurti said that thinker comes from thought. So, if you want to verify it, what Krishnamurti is saying, one has to watch the beginning of a thought. And to watch the beginning of a thought, one has to be really silent, very, very curious, very, very attentive to pick up the beginning of a thought. So it means it requires some kind of freedom at the beginning to see the beginning of a thought. And with all my curiosity, attention, energy, when I wanted to watch the beginning of a thought, my mind stopped. And at that time, it was something, first time I felt something very strange state in which there is awareness, but there is no thinking. One can listen, the senses are active, one can listen to the sounds, one can listen, one can see things, everything very, very clearly. And so, in that silent awareness, I felt that yes, our problems are arising from thinking only, because if the mind is silent, everything is so very fresh, very new, very clear. So once I verified what Krishnamurti said, that our problems are coming from thinking, then this became very interesting. Every time I had free time, I would sit in my office in the electrical engineering department and just sit quietly and um, give all my attention to the thoughts arising. And every time it would stop, my mind will stop. And so this became very interesting. And after some time, some changes begin to happen in my body, my brain, in my eyes, in my way of looking at objects like trees. It was a very beautiful campus. We had a beautiful lake and the swan going very gently on the lake, and the maple trees with the colors, leaves, dresses of people. Everything became very, very fresh, very new in that state of looking without the observer. And so Krishnamurti also asked this question even to children, that can you look at the tree without the knowledge which you have acquired about the tree, or the knowledge which you have acquired and it is interfering with your observation. So I begin to feel that there was a new world opened up, and it helped me in my studies. I was doing research in electrical engineering for PhD degree, and then I found out that Krishnamurti was alive, because I did not know whether Krishnamurti was alive or dead. So I found out that Krishnamurti was alive and he was coming to California to give public talks. But I was a student. I did not have the money to go to California. I also did not have a desire to go to California. But I kept on reading his books for 4 years. And during those 4 years, from 1973 to 1977, I read most of his books. I wrote many letters to Krishnamurti describing what was happening within my body, my brain, my way of looking at everything. And I always wrote to Krishnamurti that I am not asking you any questions. I am just expressing what I feel because there was nobody on campus of Iowa State University who was interested. I had no friend with whom I could discuss Krishnamurti. So Krishnamurti became like my friend, and wrote many letters to Krishnamurti. But I always wrote to him that you don't need to answer my questions. I'm just expressing everything. And so in 1974, 75, I completed my PhD degree, and then I went to Canada to do the job as a postdoctoral research at University of Waterloo in Canada. And I went there 1975, 76. In 1977, I felt that I had now some time. I had also some money to go to California to listen to Krishnamurti. So in 1977, 4 years after I read his books, I went to California, Ohio, to listen to Krishnamurti. And it was a very beautiful place. And you meet many people from all over the world who come to listen to Krishnamurti. And what Krishnamurti was saying was nothing new to me because I had read, I had investigated everything what he was saying about how we look, how we listen, like that. Then one day, after the talk in Ohio, we were standing in a queue to get our lunch, and I had a friend who knew that Krishnamurti had a great impact on my life. So he said, look, Krishnamurti is standing alone under a tree. Why don't you go and say hello to him? But I was very shy, and I told my friend that I have nothing to talk with him. He has said everything in his books. But my friend insisted that I should go and say hello to Krishnamurti. So, as if he pushed me to go to Krishnamurti. And when I came close to Krishnamurti, few feet away, he looked at me with his eyes fully open, but he had no mind, as if he was just looking without thinking. And my mind also stopped. And I also looked at him in the same way, without any thinking, without fear, without any image that here is a great man like that. And then I extended my hand, and he took my hand, and without saying anything, I went back, and I felt wonderful to touch Krishnamurti non-verbally, look at him, and I went back. And Uh, that was in 1977, my first meeting, non-verbal meeting with Krishnamurti. And then I went back to Canada to continue my work, research work. And then in 1978, again I went to California to listen to Krishnamurti. I listened to him, but then there was nothing great. Um, and I went back to Canada. And in 1979, for the third year, I went to Krishnamurti to listen to him and thinking that that would be my last meeting with Krishnamurti. So when I went there in the third year, 1979, then while listening to Krishnamurti for the first time, I listened to him in a different way than before. my mind was completely silent, and I could listen to the sounds coming from very far. And what Krishnamurti was saying, there was nothing. I was just listening, and then I saw something around Krishnamurti's face, and it was something very remarkable, something very unusual. And then after listening to that talk, I felt very silent. And then a few days after that, I was still in Ojai, and there was a music program in the pavilion in Ojai, and Lakshmi Shankar, a musician, a singer, she had come to sing bhajans for Krishnaji. And during that, um, we were waiting for Krishnaji. Musicians had come, and something started happening in my whole body and my brain. And then I saw Krishnamurti coming and taking his place. And then I did not even look at him, but I felt there was some extraordinary state of being, kind of a resonance with Krishnamurti, and listening the bhajans, not even looking at Krishnamurti. And then after that, I wrote some letters to Krishnaji spontaneously, and in my one of the letters, I wrote. Anyway, I won't say, but if people are interested, I will send a link in which all this is described in detail. So I went back to Canada, and then it became very, very clear that my life is meant for Krishnamurti schools and foundation. And I wrote a letter to Krishnaji, and first time I wrote to him that please write back to me. And then Krishnamurti wrote back to me a letter, and he said that he will talk about me to the principal of Rishi Valley's school, Mr. Narayan, and Mr. Narayan will write to me. So a month after that, Mr. Narayan was in Brookwood Park, and Krishnamurti was also in Brookwood Park. And Mr. Narayan said, why don't you come to Brookwood and we will talk about your coming to India with Krishnamurti. So I went to Brookwood Park from Canada, and I had the first meeting with Krishnamurti, had lunch with him, and he asked me some questions about my family background. And I told him that I was free to do whatever. I was not married, I had no responsibility, anything like that. And then Krishnamurti said two things. And he said, try at Rishi Valley for a year or two. He said, it is possible that you may not like us or we may not like you. So when he said that, I did not tell him, but I felt that if people don't like me, I will go away. I don't expect anything from the school. And then, second thing Krishnamurti said, he said, don't stay long at one place. That means don't remain in Rishi Valley forever. So I told him I did not tell him, but I thought, no, I told him that, sir, it doesn't matter where I go. And he said, yes, I know that. And so after that, I went back to Canada and completed my work at the university. And in the month of November 1979, I went to Rishi Valley School. And when the school vehicle entered the campus, I saw Krishnamurti coming out from the campus for his walk, and he was the first person I saw in Rishi Valley. And when the school vehicle came to the guest house, it was a beautiful evening, and there was a golden light in the whole valley. And my mind was very, very happy to come to Rishi Valley, and I felt that this place will become like my home. And so, and then we had many dialogues with Krishna ji, with teachers, with students and teachers. And initially, I was very shy in participating in these dialogues, but later on, I became quite free in talking with Krishnaji, asking, and sometimes I would even question Krishnamurti, and sometimes he was getting not very happy with my questions, but I did not mind. I felt that I was very free. I could say whatever I felt, and I did not that fear was not there that here is a great person, my guru or something like that. You know. So I worked and I enjoyed uh, teaching physics and mathematics in the school. And as Krishnamurti said, don't stay long at one place. So from 1979 to 1983, I was in Rishi Valley. Then I went to Rajghat School and I taught there for 1 year physics and mathematics in Rajghat, and then went back to Rishi Valley because Rajghat climate was very extreme and it was not good for my health. So I went back to Rishi Valley. And then in 1989, mm, I went to Brookwood Park and I taught there for 6 months. Then went back to Rishi Valley. And then in 1998, I went to Sayadri School, a new school which had started in 1995. And I was in Sayadri School for 6 years up to 2004. And then I went to Valley School in Bangalore and I was there for 3 years. So I retired from teaching physics and mathematics in 2007 after 28 years. And then I came back to my hometown. And then since 2007, I started visiting all these places like Rishi Valley, Valley School, Chennai, Rajghat, Sayadri School, and once in a while to Brookwood and Ojai, study center guest. And I did that, and in Canada also, study center. So I traveled a lot. I had many friends all over the world, and I visited. My whole life has gone into this Krishnamurti teachings, looking inward, and there's nothing to understand, I feel, in this Krishnamurti. People are trying hard to understand Krishnamurti, but there is nothing to understand, only to see what is happening inside you moment by moment. And that tells you everything about you want to know. In a direct way, you are reading the book of your own life, and that is the authenticity. You can, even if you feel that what Krishnamurti says is not true, you can question that. And also, Krishnamurti says that he is not authority. There is no authority in this field. You have to be a light to yourself. That means you have to know yourself uh, as you are, not as you want to be. That means that if anger arises in you, you can see the anger arising as, as it is arising. And so there is no analysis involved, not saying that I want to be free from anger, but seeing the anger as it is arising. Same way it is fear or desire or loneliness or any psychological problem. That means one has to be in ongoing awareness with what is happening within us, a kind of effortless awareness without any motive. And if you have a motive, if you make an effort to understand yourself, you will get tired. But when it is effortless, motiveless, that means it becomes your nature to look at yourself as you are, moment by moment, and that tells you everything. In that, there are no illusions because there is no desire to reach anywhere. You don't have any desire to become anything, but you are happy to look and listen and learn. So this is what I learned from Krishnamurti, and that is what he was saying, that there is nothing to understand. Trying to understand is a waste of time. It creates more conflict, more division between what is and what should be. So one has to forget everything, even what Krishnamurti has said, and look fresh at one's own self directly, moment by moment. And that can happen if that is the most important thing in our life, that uh, money is not important, becoming something famous is not important, but looking at what is, being what you are. So this is what I learned from Krishnamurti, and now one can listen not only to Krishnamurti, but we can listen to any a servant or a friend or a bird or a music. So this is the art of listening without interfering with. So have I said enough, Suromita?
Sir, very, very glad to have heard you sharing your understanding. Sir, some questions I would like to ask from what we heard from you. Lot of
Yeah.
people mistake uh, watching the mind as
Mhm.
thinking about watching the mind, because yeah.
Yeah.
So can you please open this up a little clearly for
Uh,
us, that
yeah.
what, where
Okay.
do we go wrong?
Okay. There is something within us. Normally, what happens that our life is lived mostly in the flat plane of thinking and feeling. And all our questions, all our desires are coming from this flat plane called thinking and feeling. It's a two-dimensional plane. But when a person is able to come out from this plane of thinking and feeling in the third dimension, above the plane of thinking and feeling, that that dimension Krishnamurti calls awareness. So then that awareness can see all the thoughts and feelings arising without analyzing. It can see what is. So our problem is not thinking and feeling. We all think, we all have feelings. That is not our problem. Our problem is that we have not that dimension called intelligence or choiceless awareness is not awakened. When it is awakened, we can see everything clearly. And then there is no need to understand anything, only to see. You know. So that awareness, what Krishnaji says, in the light of awareness, all problems created by thinking are dissolved. So I feel that it is true that we have to come out from this thinking and feeling and look without thinking, further thinking, whatever is happening, without the sense of observer or thinker, you know. So that's why the observer and the observed are one. It is in that state. It is true. When there is no sense of me, only watching, awareness watching, in that sense, uh, the thinker and thought, observer and observed, they are one psychologically. Physically, we are separate. You have your body, I have my body, but psychologically, there is no this person called me in looking, listening. And so there is no division. Then there is no sense of you and the world. So, so you are the world in that sense, but that is a expression in words. You are the world. The actual feeling of it, you don't say anything. You are watching, listening, learning. So this is something very amazing, and I had not felt such thing in my life before reading Krishnamurti. But when I begin to uh, look at my own self after reading a little bit, maybe reading 10 minutes, 15 minutes of Krishnamurti, and then you can close the book and look at your own self in a fresh way, whatever is happening, and not saying this is good or this is bad, but a stream of thinking is going on by itself. And sometimes you don't know it is going on. Sometimes you can even catch, like some old song comes to my mind, which I had forgotten for many years, and suddenly it comes, and I catch the first few lines of that song because there is awareness, and then I wonder from where this song is coming. I am not trying to remember it. It is coming by itself. So only there is watching, not thinking, not trying to understand. Yeah, yes, finish. Yeah.
Sir, another thing comes that to be able to watch as is,
Hmm.
what does it require? For example, we are very scared to watch our own mind. Some of us, we don't want to watch those dark spaces in our mind, and if we see it, or if there is seeing of it, we want to change it. As you said, thinking wants to change it. So
All right.
what are the things that is really really,
Yeah.
make this path or watching very good and with a lot of integrity?
Yes, yes. What happens that when a person becomes very, very attentive to observe his own mind, and if in this process of observing the mind really stops, then two things happen. One thing many people say that there's a kind of a silence. There is a sense of there's nobody there. It is like a psychological death, and that is very frightening. So people don't want to go back to that sense of self. But in some few people, that this no self, and just looking, it is a state of freedom. And they say, oh, wonderful, this state. And for such people, then there are no fear. If fear is coming, it can be seen too. In this, so awareness becomes one's nature, you know, and that is a state of freedom. There is nothing to understand, nothing to ask. No answers will satisfy you. Uh, Somebody can give answers, but it will be some other people's answer. It will not satisfy you. So only looking, listening, learning without the self, that is a state of freedom, I would say. And then we can listen to anybody, yeah? Yes.
Sir,
And and you had said something about devotion, right?
yes,
Something
yes,
about
I
some
was coming
people
to
are,
that. Yeah.
yeah, yes. I think that is also wonderful if people have real devotion like Ramakrishna, can that is also kind of a surrender that you don't exist, only that deity, the Kali or whatever God exists. So in that happens in the maybe in the more advanced stage, that even Ramakrishna used, he instead of worshipping Kali, he was worshipping himself, because there was no that division that there is a devotee and there is a God there.
Mm.
So initially there is a duality there, but when there is a real uh, awakening of that intelligence or awareness, that sense of the devotee is also lost. But then some people, like Ramakrishna, said there is no harm in just keeping the attitude of a devotee, because he had gone through Nirvikalp Samadhi, and also he used to see God in form also. So I think devotion can also lead to uh, a different dimension than our usual thinking and feeling. Yeah,
So, do you think, because I want to tell everyone else also that I had asked this question to Harshad sir earlier, that where does the path of inquiry and path of bhakti meet? So, in this context only, sir, do you think that this path of bhakti that people follow, there's a following there? Huh? And what
mhm.
Krishna ji is saying is basically not following without rationally understanding the working of the mind, and then in that seeing whatever takes place by itself. So do
Yeah,
you think that people who are in the path of bhakti only would, I mean, how do you think it's that different from what Krishna ji is saying, or how does this rational seeing can really help in our life instead of
yeah,
blindly following something?
yeah, yeah. Even in the teachings of Buddha and Upanishads, there are dialogues between teacher and student, and they also tell you find out. So that not to follow blindly, because that means you are not understanding yourself. This understanding of oneself is
Hmm.
very important, as we are. And when that happens, then you don't need to follow any guru, not even Krishnamurti, or but the feeling of devotion may still exist in
Yeah.
you. Yeah, but not following anybody. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think when
So
the
I think
observer, yes.
it's a kind of a balance. If you go only in a devotional way, then it may lead to many illusions also.
Mm, yeah.
And if you go only on the intellectual way, you can become a very dry intellectual person. But
Mm,
you need a balance, both devotion and intellect, and to go beyond both, I think.
mm.
Yeah, I feel that is there.
Beautiful. Yeah. Sir, last question. We are almost, we have kind of taken a lot of your time. So, after spending so many years with the teachings of Krishna ji, has there been any kind of difference in like when you started reading and understanding Krishna ji and today? Like your whole life looking at Krishnamurti's teachings and knowing about the person, being associated with his work so closely, what do
Hmm.
you have to tell us who are in the path of inquiry generally? How does he different from a lot of other masters, and what uniqueness has touched your life of from his teachings?
Yeah, yes, Krishnamurti is showing what is happening in the world with all the violence and corruption, and in the family problems, anger, fear. He is pointing out what is happening in the world. And then he said, you have to look all this in you also. See carefully. examine, watch. And when you are able to see clearly your own mind without this division between what is and what should be, then you don't need anything. That what is the truth, and what is moving from moment to moment. And that means it is like moving with what is. So I would say, in the analogy, if you move with the speed of light, according to Einstein's theory, the chronological time doesn't exist.
Mm.
That means if you are able to move with the speed of light, you remain what you are. You remain young, fresh, what you are. Time doesn't exist. Similarly, if a person who can move with what is, that means thoughts, feelings, a stream which is coming and going along with that stream without this thinker or observer coming and saying that I want this or that, then that moving with what is, without the thinker, without the observer, in that there is no psychological time.
Yes.
And that means your mind remains young, fresh. You don't deteriorate with your age. Your brain continuously gets refreshed. And Krishnamurti used to talk about the mutation of the brain cells. So you can really begin to feel that your brain, your body is very vibrant, the energy flowing, you can feel it. So this is what Krishnamurti is talking about, moving with what is, you know, yeah.
So beautiful, sir. This is like so apt and so direct. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank,
Thank
thank you,
you.
thank you, thank you so much, sir, for giving us time. And we wish to keep coming back to you for these kind of sessions more in
Okay.
future. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.